Really does help if you actually turn your microphone on, I find, right? So, guys, it is Sunday, and therefore, welcome to the Snark Lounge. And boy, oh boy, do we have a show for you today. I want to go ahead without further ado. I want to bring my guest in, but before I do, some of you guys may notice on the advertisement that my better half Bunny is not joining us today due to the topic. She didn't have anything to add, so she's like, I'm just going to sit this one out. So, but you guys know my better half Bunny, so she will not be joining us. Also, you may see Skittles jumping in and out of the feed. He's been kind of needy lately because Bunny isn't here, so and that's quite all right. before I bring my guest in, I do have one special thing I want to show you guys. I want to give you guys a special sneak peek at a new channel intro I'm working on. So I want to play this without further ado. So, who am I? So I'm Jimmy, aka SnarkyGuy. I make uncurmudgeon-like videos, scenery, and videos all over southern China. I make videos about the real life here in China. And then I usually add my own uncut commentary to it. So yeah, I hope you guys will join me for the adventure. And as always carry a can of sardines. Never know when they'll come in handy. We'll see you guys in the next video. So yeah, that looks like a lot of fun. Hope you guys want to check that out later. I'll be adding that to the channel probably later this week. May tweak it a little bit. But without further ado, I want to bring in the man, the myth, the legend, Sir Burbex. So, his mic is muted. His mic is muted. Let's see if we can help him there. So,
hello, Joe. Hello, Snarky. How are you tonight?
Hey, welcome to the Snark Lounge, my friend. You look
like one of the Blues Brothers tonight.
I don't know. I was told, yeah, I do have the Blues Brothers poster right there too, but someone else told me I look like a Hasidic Jew tonight. So,
yeah, with the beard, you need some like braids and stuff, right?
Yeah, I need a little braids, and a little, little phlegm in my voice, ha ha, or something, that'll work.
That's what they say, right? Oy vey.
So, like, cool intro. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So what are we talking about tonight?
Today
something
we are
sensitive, right?
We have a kind of a different show today. That's why it's a two-man show. It's also why I thought I would make myself some sausages with cheese on them. So,
should I talk about it a bit?
Absolutely. So, go ahead and take us away. Introduce what we're talking about, sir.
Well, I think before we begin this, we should have a disclaimer, right? That
definitely
everything that we talk about in this, right, is from our own point of views. There is our own opinions. I'm just going to try and present facts today, and if I get the facts wrong or if I offend any of you, I'm sorry about that, right? I'm just saying what I know. If you can give me more information about this topic, I'm wide open. This is kind of like a starting point for a discussion rather than me just sitting here telling you should think this, right? So
absolutely.
The thing we're kind of talking about today is gender, right? And kind of the differences between sex and gender. And hopefully we can kind of relate this to living in China as well, right? Because recently there's been this whole discussion on YouTube. Yeah, Lucy's just said we're in a safe place. And yes, I am drinking beer. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get this conversation flowing, I think, right? Beer is necessary.
Story. So yeah. I'm drinking a Coke. Nobody tell my wife, okay? So.
Yeah, Snarky gets beaten by Bunny if he drinks Coke.
So, yeah, you can say Jimmy. Everybody knows my name is Jimmy. So
okay.
actually, let me take 30 seconds and explain that real quick here. Back when I first moved to China, I was worried because, oh no, YouTube is blocked. I thought, well, I can't be using my own name. That would be a terrible idea. And so I thought, well, I'm Snarky. I'm a guy, and I I kind of adopted a moniker. But, like anything else, I just kind of kept it. But yeah, everybody knows my real name, so it's fine. You can say Jimmy. You can even say James. I know you like the James.
Yeah, James sounds better, I think, especially when you wear that hat.
Yes, so like I'm a home James.
I'm Burbex, right? My moniker is Burbex, but my name's actually Bryn, so you can call me Bryn if you want to, unless you're going to say horrible things about me on the internet.
There we go.
Yeah,
Burbex Happy Hour. There we go.
Burbex stands for Bryn's Urban Exploration, which is my channel. So you guys all know that, well, maybe you don't know. I lived in China about 16 years, right? And in those 16 years, I've lived all over China. And I've seen a lot of Chinese culture, right? There's kind of the culture that you see on the surface, and then there's kind of this undercurrent culture. I think maybe in other shows we've been talking about things which is more on the surface, but I feel like we need to go a bit more in depth into it. Oh, Lucy says she likes that name. Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, it's a good name. Thanks.
and Bowen says James is too formal. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Maybe I'm a formal kind of guy.
My dad is actually named Jim, and so I was always Jimmy. And when I got older, I said try to call me Jim, and I was like, no. I've always been Jimmy. I don't see any reason to change.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue, sir.
So some of the things we're talking about today are kind of gender issues in China. So, like I've lived in China a long time, and I think over 16 years, Chinese culture has actually started to change a fair bit.
True story.
There are some things in China right now which are still kind of maybe not exact. They're still kind of frowned upon. And, like one of the things that's frowned upon in China is actually like being gay, right? I'm not gay myself. I have a beautiful girlfriend. I have gay friends here in China, though. And I think that over the 16 years that I've lived here, that acceptance of gay people has become more, I wouldn't say more accepted, but I would say more mainstream, right? I think that a lot of people have actually, it's actually acceptable for people to say to their families, say to each other, I'm gay, right? Now, if we go back, I think probably like 15 or 20 years ago, right? You had the chairman who was Hu Jintao. Now we got the chairman Xi Jinping, right? But before we had the chairman Hu Jintao. Hu Jintao's prime minister was called Wen Jiabao. He was a very old man. They called him Grandfather Wen, right? And this was never reported in the Chinese media, but Wen Jiabao actually went to Cambridge University to give a presentation, and he basically stood up, and somebody in the audience, one of the students said, "What about gay people in China?" And Wen Jiabao, very, very straight-faced, said, "There are no gay people in China." And it brought down the house. Everybody just shit themselves laughing because there was this kind of, they were denying that there was this gay element in China, right? So it was something that was kind of swept under the rug. In China, my feeling is that even now, if a young Chinese man or a young Chinese woman was to go to their family and say, I'm gay, I'm a woman and I love other women, or I'm a man and I love other men. If they went to their family and they said that, then basically the parents would say, the parents don't actually care about the kids being gay. That's my solid opinion, that most Chinese parents don't care. The number one thing they would say is, but what about babies? Because I really believe in China, the number one priority is like having babies, right? And kind of being gay tends to get in the way of that, right? I don't know. That's complicated. Like I know about Chinese guys that will adopt babies, or they have like a surrogate mother who will bring these up, and these are very common things that happen in China as well. But generally, it's not really frowned upon from a cultural point of view, but it's just a very Chinese people are very practically minded. They think we want the babies, so it's just a matter of where the babies come from. But actually, during last Spring Festival, there was an advertisement during the, what do they call it? The Spring Festival Gala. You know the Spring Festival Gala on TV?
Of course.
Yeah. So this is like a very big show that they have on TV. And the commercials, the advertisements which are shown during this, they tend to be very traditional. But during the last one, there was an advertisement where the boy brings another boy home at Spring Festival for the Spring Festival meal. And this caused a big scandal in China because everyone's like, oh shit, we can talk about being gay on TV now. So they've kind of opened the floodgates and it's kind of gone mainstream to be gay now, where in the past, maybe it was something that was swept under the rug. And in my opinion, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. It's kind of where China is headed. Maybe it's a bit behind like America and Britain and Europe, where things have moved a lot further ahead. But China is catching up a lot with this, I think. And people tend to say, oh, you can't talk about being gay in China. But actually, I think it's fine to talk about it. I have gay friends here in Shanghai, and Shanghai actually is a super gay city. What do you think about that, Snarky?
As a matter of fact,
it's a super gay city, right?
Well, I quote Jay and Silent Bob from Clerks. I'm all about the clam myself. Mm-hmm. But having said that, you do see a lot of this sort of thing. I took a photo, and I want to put a photo up on the screen I took last year in the Shanghai metro. There's a gentleman getting on the metro. Why is that not coming up there?
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a gentleman got on the metro. He had himself on a little crown there, a little dress, and a little purse, and he even had on pantyhose, which is Shanghai's a pretty humid city. That may not be the best thing to do in the summertime, but it is becoming more acceptable for this sort of thing. Unlike it's always been. I took another photo last year in the red light district of Amsterdam. And there's a couple of dudes who were just kind of hanging out, and you expect.
I hope they weren't literally hanging out.
Well, I didn't look that closely, but you expect to see this sort of thing in Amsterdam, but you don't really expect to see this sort of thing. Is not the first thing that comes to mind when you think of China. Now, it is becoming more and more, I should say, acceptable, but we're going to kind of branch off from there, of course, in sort of identities. And you and I were having this discussion over a nice burrito earlier this week. So, but I do see that this is becoming a little more acceptable. Having said that, it's acceptable from one point of view, but it's not necessarily acknowledged from another point of view.
Yeah, I think so. So like Shenzhou is saying that China, I'm just looking at Shenzhou's comments right now, and he's saying that China should develop or change at its own comfortable pace, slow and steady, not sudden and rapid. And actually, I agree with that. I feel like in America and Europe and England, this kind of message is kind of forced on people a lot, but it's not something that can really be forced on people in China. Helen Tanner says there's already a few big BL drama in China and mostly big hits. Yeah, and I think that's because China is becoming more accepting of these things. You just showed me this cross-dressing guy on the subway. I I think if he'd done this maybe like 10 or 15 years ago in China, I don't think that, you know, gay people would necessarily get beaten up or like pointed at in the subway or anything, but they would definitely be looked down upon. I have a student in one of my classes. I'm not going to say his name because that wouldn't be very nice. But
of course,
you know, a couple of weeks ago, I mean, he's quite an effeminate boy anyway, right? And a couple of weeks ago, he came into the class, and basically he was wearing full makeup and a dress to class. And, you know, like, everybody thought this was funny. The girls loved it. They thought it was hilarious. And then I went up to him and he said that he loves the Rococo style, and Marie Antoinette is his, you know, like, hero. So, or heroine, rather.
Rococo style?
Rococo style. I'm not even sure what he's like. Rococo style. I'm not sure what Rococo is. So for me to see that,
sounds like a gay automatopoeia, but
so to see that in a classroom, somebody who's like 15 years old openly doing this, they have to be incredibly brave to do that. So I think the culture here is definitely changing. People see a very closed culture. I think it's opening really very fast.
The amazing thing was the dude on the metro, fully decked out, and I fully expected people just to be walking up left and right with their phones, you know, click, 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 taking photos. And the most amazing thing happened. Nobody seemed to notice.
Nobody cares, right?
Yeah, it's like, you know, whatever. You know, I want to go to a couple of comments here. Yes, big priority to having babies in China. That's true.
Yeah,
true. Yeah. So someone says, my parents solidly would care about my being gay itself. So some would definitely. So in my circles among our parents, I keep on saying that if a woman doesn't have a boyfriend by the end of the college university years, they have a problem. Now that's more of a societal issue, I think, than it is whether someone necessarily cares on who butters their bread on what side. So,
and I think like I was saying, that Shanghai feels like a very gay city as well. But I think within China, there are a lot of divisions in itself, you know. So like, for example, I've lived in the north of China. I've lived in the south of China. And, you know, like, I think some things that would work here in Shanghai definitely wouldn't work in the north of China. You know, like...
well, yeah, of course. Shanghai's a little more, shall we say, metropolitan. And so a lot of things that are, you know, it's just like when my wife and I, when we go out, they pay more attention to her than they do to me, because I'm just another
beautiful person.
That's true. So I love that. Who butters their bread? True story. So, of course, and we got to have the burritos comment there. But yeah, so but in the southern part of China, you know, they are a little more conservative on some things.
Like what?
On some things. Well, for example, I mean, while they don't necessarily would probably give more attention to the dude wearing the dress, I regularly would see people walking around buck naked out in public. That happened
naked, or like just with their pants, their undies on.
Well, no, like just like saw a dude had a nice pair of shoes, socks, over the shoulder bag, and he's just walking out, not a care in the world, just swinging in the wind, as they say. Was out with my mom and my sisters in a little town called Jiamutou, and there was a naked lady walking around. So
yeah, it does get pretty hot here, though, right?
Well, that's true. It does get very hot down there, and I a lot of times it's more of about expression, I suppose, and maybe it is just hot. Who knows? So I find that they can be more conservative in some areas and not others. But even 20 years ago, we'd see the seeds of this brewing. As a lot of you guys know, I spent a lot of my formative years. I grew up in Hong Kong, and I remember I was living in a little village just north of Shengshui, right next to the Shenzhen border. And this dude walked out of his apartment wearing a 3-piece Armani suit. He was dressed to the nines. Walked out, and of course, you see the clothes draped over between the apartments there. There was like about this much room. There was no car in there. And without missing a bit, he's walking down, reaches up, grabs a pair of panties, shoves it in his suit, and keeps on going.
That's a strange one, James.
That is a strange one. But you can see the seeds of that were already there, 20, 30 years ago. So
yeah, and what Lucy's just said, right, is inappropriate for her to show her shoulders in Beijing, right? I think a couple of weeks ago, right, we were talking about the Beijing bikini. And just to recap what the Beijing bikini is, that's like when Chinese men will roll up their, this is not my belly doesn't normally do that. This is how they do it. They're like, there we go. Jimmy's got the Beijing bikini.
Oh, yes. So
they will walk around with their...
A little more snarky to love there.
Yeah. They will walk around with their T-shirt rolled up to expose their belly. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. I was actually in Beijing this week for a few days, and the Beijing bikini has actually been banned in Beijing. So if you walk around...
Why is that?
They say that it's basically indecent. They want to improve the image of Beijing. But the thing
I want to stop. I want to stop you there. You say it's indecent, but I bet that no one is stopping those girls walk around with a little midriff shirt, showing off their little belly.
Yeah. That's a good point too. They don't mind that, do they?
No.
What about the grannies doing that? So I think if they try to enforce that ban in Shanghai, it would be impossible. Like Li Bowen was just talking about people walking around naked in Shanghai. I live, like in one of these smaller, older neighborhoods, and you literally do see men just walking around in their pants, like their underwear, not their trousers, but literally their underwear.
Or the old dudes with the matching pajamas walking around all day and the matching jammies.
And like some days I really want to just do that as well because it's so hot here.
we should do that. We should do that. We should get some matching jammies and we should go out and make a video in matching jammies.
Yeah. And nobody would care. They would just all...
And no one would care.
They would look at us and laugh. Yeah. So, the first city I lived in China is actually called Changchun, and this is the north of China, right? And I lived there a long time, and then I left. I had to go back for work quite often, like I would stay in hotels there. And WeChat is how like everybody communicates in China, right? It's like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, right? Just in case you don't know what that is. And there maybe still is this feature in WeChat, but it's called scan for people around me, right? And you can turn on this function and then you can scan to make new friends around you, right?
It's like there's probably like a low-end Tinder almost.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, a few kilometers around you, you can make friends. And if you have the on switch turned on about it, people can find you, right? So every time I would check into the Shangri-La Hotel in Changchun, I would start getting messages, right? Ding, 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 ding. Usually they were from prostitutes. Oh, no. I'm not into that kind of thing. But then one day I received this message and the picture in the WeChat is quite attractive. So I start talking to this person. And then she says to me, I have a penis, like I have a dick. And at that point I was like, well, I didn't know that there were these kinds of people in especially in a place like Changchun. Changchun has a very like macho.
Wobble young Jiba.
Yeah. So
no funky Jiba for me, thanks.
Yeah. I'm not into that, but I was very interested in finding out. Burbex looks like he needs a good meal. Oh, hey, Straya. You why don't you send me a smart chat and then I can get some food afterwards?
Yes,
So
yes.
I received a message.
Super chat Burbex, he's hungry. Oh, here we go.
So
please get matching jammies. Please. Lucy wants us to get the matching jammies.
Yeah. Maybe we can do a special show just for Lucy.
Yes.
Yeah. We might have to go to Pornhub for that one. Pornhub live chat.
Oh dear. Yeah. It's a good thing I elected to demonetize this video already. So anyway, continue, sir.
I was just chatting with this basically a transvestite, a transsexual. I'm not sure what kind of person it was. And then this person was telling me that in Changchun there's actually like a whole community of these people. I lost contact with that person, but then like the next day I was talking with a taxi driver and he said that all of these people, all of these transvestites, they gather around Renmin Guangchang, Renmin Square, People's Square at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of Changchun. And, like that really opened my eyes because I didn't, you meet a lot of Chinese men who are quite effeminate, but you don't know to what extent they are gay or have other gender identities. So, hey, Lucy's saying Pornhub, eh? What do you know about my love affair with Pornhub? Okay. Thanks, Lucy. Whoa, we got a super sticker. Thanks, Drea. Australian dollars. Awesome. I think we're losing the connection, but I think, are you still there? Am I still here? Well, I guess I think Snarky's gone down. Can you guys still hear me? Well, I guess I can keep talking then. Yeah, you can hear me. Thank you for telling us that women like Pornhub as well. That's interesting information. Yeah, so this is one of the things that I've been wondering about recently, is because recently on YouTube, there's been like this whole question about what people call like the gender spectrum, right? If you don't really understand what gender spectrum is, it's quite complicated, right? It's this idea that, like when we think about male and female, right? We've got like, there's the idea of sex, and then there's the idea of gender, right? So your sex, mostly you're male or you're female. And, like that's our hardware, right? That's the hardware that's inside us. And then we think about gender, and gender is like the social thing that's given to us, like whether you identify as a man or whether you identify as a woman, right? But then a lot of people come in and they say that gender is not binary. And, like I'm open to this idea. I know that there's some people that maybe are born into a man's body, but they have like a female identity, right? Or maybe they're born into a woman's body and they feel like a man's identity. But the problem with this is that when you start challenging this idea, that you get some very nasty reactions from people. For example, J.K. Rowling, Lucy is saying gender fluidity, right? Now, for example, J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, she's always been very supportive of, like trans issues, like gender issues like this. But she got in trouble when she said that she got in trouble from trans supporters when she said that transsexuals who had gone from men to being women were not real women. And they called her a feminazi. Feminazi means like a Nazi feminist. And then like the feminists say, we don't want the men who turn from men to women. So it brings up all these kind of issues. I don't really have an opinion about that, but they're introducing this idea of like gender spectrum that and in the gender spectrum, right, this is quite a complicated thing to explain. And I was just reading about it before, and there was a scientist, and he said the gender spectrum is basically, you have, for example, you might have big, strong, masculine men, right? That's at one end of the gender spectrum. But then at the other end of the male spectrum, you might have like men who are, not so strong. And it often gets attached with like the size of your penis, for example. Like there are some guys out there who are like big, strong guys. Other guys out there who are weak, guys with big beards or guys with no facial hair at all, right? And then that goes the other way as well, because you have women who have the female sex, so you might see very feminine women, but then on the other hand, you might have quite butch, strong women with more body hair, for example. So you kind
That's true.
And then they say that this is proof of the gender spectrum, that if you're a big, strong dude, with all the big, strong manliness, you are closer to the male gender. Whereas if you're, like a little skinny, weak dude who looks very effeminate, then, you're at the other end. But I think that leads to a lot of trouble when you start saying that, because what works in one society might not work in another. For example,
that's true.
And now I have to be very, very careful where I step right now.
Okay.
Because, for example, men in Shanghai tend to be very effeminate, right? Jimmy, would you agree with that? Are men in Shanghai effeminate?
Some do have the propensity of being so, yes. So Jimmy goes up.
How would you describe them?
Well, for example, I have a number of friends who, they are very extremely subservient to their girlfriends or wives, to the effect, well, you will see a dude walking down the street and he's got 15 shopping bags and his wife's purse, and she's got carrying nothing, but she is definitely the boss. Having said that, though, well, I mean, a lot of it is going to be culture, but some of it is also going to be behavior. For example, those of you who have seen my wife and I together, Bunny, she was definitely the boss. And although she's smaller than me, she definitely is. Well, as a matter of fact, her and I, we have two rules. Rule number one, Bunny is always right. When in doubt, when in doubt, rule number 2 says refer to rule 1.
Yep.
So, and I would not just class myself as effeminate at all. As a matter of fact, it's just something that works very well for us, She prefers to walk on my left side so she can hold me with her dominant hand. And that's just, the way our relationship works. However, you will see a lot of people who go that degree so much further, to the extent of they're actually put on a weekly allowance. They have to take their salary and give it entirely to their wife. That is a very Shanghai thing to do, you find.
But then if we were to take like a structure like the gender, like the gender spectrum, and apply it to something like that, whether it's physical or societal, it would mean that technically these men on that scale are less men than are closer to women than they are men in a scientific way. I'm going to say pseudoscience. And to be honest, I think that when people start saying things like that, then it kind of removes the fact that men can be men and women can be women in many, many different ways. And so I think they've kind of shot themselves in the foot with this gender spectrum argument.
That's true. And my wife she actually just made a post here in the comments. She says, let your wife be the queen and you become the king.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
I agree with that as well. Let the women in China, they believe, let the woman have her role, which is usually like being the queen of the castle. Right?
Yes.
And then the man can like sit back and he can be the king of the castle at home. I think it kind of works like that.
Yep. So I want to address a super chat here, by the way, guys. Straya, really appreciate that. Has men's razor ads with lumberjack looking dudes in Korea, razor ads were metrosexual, clean shaven latte and carrying a latte in the satchel. Yeah, that's true. You do see that a lot. So that comes back more of what your identity is as a male or not.
Because this is something you see a lot in China, is that for women's cosmetics, you will have a Korean man or a very effeminate looking man advertising those women's cosmetics. So, maybe there'll be, I don't know, for a lipstick, for example, and then your favorite Korean effeminate looking man will be there with like the lipstick beside his mouth doing this. Well, I can't do it if Korean men's lip, doing things like this, or holding it against their face like this in a very effeminate way. So what would they be on the gender spectrum? Does that make them less of a man because they're doing this less manly activity? I'm not sure.
Well, there's a phrase out there you hear a lot called metro, which is going to be a dude who is still a dude, but he's a little more effeminate, a little more, trim and posh. You got your, and I'm not saying, and I again, please don't, think I'm pointing at any one person. You got your full body shaver dudes out there who just shave everything down and just so they can be clean as possible. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. If you feel more comfortable, weed whacking around the boys, by all means, you're right. But we do find that this has become more of a trend in society. So I want to address a comment here. Someone says, in Japanese culture, it's the wife that controls the purse strings, and husbands are expected to give their salaries to their wife to settle the household expenses. So Bunny wants to point out that my husband didn't give me all his salary. So
does Bunny have another husband?
So, well, she's referring to me, of course.
But we've been focusing on men here. But actually, I've noticed another trend in China, just in maybe like 4 or 5 years, and you'll see really pretty made up girls, like they got their makeup on and everything, and they'll be walking around with their partner, and you look at their partner and you think, is that a boy or is that a girl? And I mean, this is a problem I had in China a lot, is that often you will see individuals and they look so asexual that you can't actually tell if it's a boy or a girl. But these days I've noticed, and this is a lot in Shanghai, is that you see very butch looking girls, maybe with like tattoos or shaved out at the side of the heads, wearing, lumberjack shirts and things. And then they'll be walking around with very, very pretty girls. And you start wondering, is this person just like a tomboy, or are they, like lesbians, for example? Or maybe they don't know.
Well,
androgynous,
and it doesn't help. Also, in China, we have a lot of the culture where it's very common for friends to walk around holding hands.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, because of that, it makes it
hugging each other.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more of a head scratcher, So yes, androgynous. That's a good term there, definitely. So. Lucy says Korean men so pretty. That's true.
Really? Oh no, come on. They're so weird looking, really. Sorry, Lucy, I can't agree with that one.
Years ago when I was working for a major company, I've been away from them long enough, I can probably say I was working for HP, and I had an employee named actually I won't actually name him. He was a Hispanic gentleman who liked to cross-dress in the office. And as his manager, I had to make a judgment call. And I told him, I said, I really don't have a problem with it, as long as your work is not impacted. Having said that, on days we have special guests, I would prefer if you dress in more traditional men's clothing. And you know what? We never had a problem. Never once. Dude did his work, like Johnny on the spot. And, nobody said anything about, a 300-pound Mexican dude wearing fishnets.
Oh, he was a big dude.
He was a big dude, yes. Yeah, he actually had the whale tail going on sometimes. Straya is the man tonight.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the
$100 already.
Yeah, he's just come alive here. Is there something we need to know about Straya?
Yeah, I think we're on the right topic.
Straya, though, I do want to give him a monster. Straya and I, we're going to be doing a video with Squeezable Vegemite. We're going to do a rap battle over Squeezable Vegemite.
No, sorry. I'm not down with the Vegemite. No, I'm Marmite. Marmite is better than Vegemite.
Here's something I want to... Lucy says, I'm a CIS tomboy. What does CIS mean? Do you know?
Let me Google that. I'll Google that quickly.
Lucy, if you want to drop that in the comments, CIS. I've heard that phrase before, but I'm really not up on the lingo there. So if you want to...
here it says, denoting or relating to a person whose sense of personal identity and gender corresponds with their birth sex.
Oh,
so I think that means that she identifies as being
opposite of trans.
So that basically just makes her a regular girl who just likes to dress like a boy. I don't know.
She says, I identify as a female. I was born with a VJ, and I'm straight. There you go.
Good for you, Lucy.
There we go. Hey,
I'm a CIS male. I didn't know.
I'm just a snarky guy. But I think ultimately, go on.
There was one other thing I wanted to introduce as well, and there's a very famous psychologist from Canada called Jordan Peterson, right? And
yes. Familiar?
He created there was this whole furore in Canada because in some of the universities they wanted to introduce this idea about gender pronouns, for trans individuals. I can't remember all the gender pronouns. There's a lot, but the one that usually comes up is, instead of his and her, you have ziz, ZIS, or for they you have they, for example.
Yes.
And the universities were trying to enforce this rule that the college professors had to, if a student identified themselves as a trans individual, then the professors had to use the correct trans pronoun, right? And then, of course, this guy, Jordan Peterson, said that's against civil rights, like it's against our freedom of speech. You're forcing us to say something. I don't really have an opinion about that, but the interesting thing that I found there is that in the West, if we were in English, when we talk about, like he and she, and then you got an it, we don't actually have words for like somebody who is an other, right? Like, so we have to create new words like they. But in China, you don't need any of that, because in China, everybody is ta or ni, and it doesn't make any difference.
So common, woman. Yeah.
So like China is is perfect for like transgender individuals, because everybody is ta. Just like that.
It's all just the people icon there, the Ren. We're all just Ren, and of course you can subdivide that down, but when you get to its base character, there it is. It's interesting enough. I had a situation, as a lot of you guys know, I went to school in Hong Kong. I went to a couple of them. One of my schools, I went to reunion not long ago, and one of my good friends, very manly guy, won't name him on this stream, he wasn't there, and we were looking all over for him, and finally we discover a lady there. My good friend he'd done the full transition, got everything, bob, nip, take the hormones, I mean, the full thing. And but then I ran into the problem. It's like, okay, first of all, my pronouns were constantly messed up, because you want to fall into the old pattern of behavior with your friend, and it was kind of hard to fall into that. And also, how do you relate? And I found that a problem, because not that I had a problem with he, her, ta adopting this new identity, but it created a problem for me, because it's hard for me to relate to that person in my old connotations.
Well, I think when we were talking about this the other day, and it'd be like, for example, Jimmy has got a cat called Skittles. I don't know if Skittles is there right now. Jimmy loves Skittles and has that relationship with Skittles. But if tomorrow Jimmy woke up and there was a dog there instead, and the dog said, "Hi, my name's Skittles," which would be pretty amazing, it would be pretty difficult to get your head around, right? And I think it's the same, because they say to you, "I'm basically the same." They will often say, "I'm the same person that I was before," and you're like, well, actually, no, you're not. You've changed your sex, you've changed your gender identity, and then people get quite outraged about it, and they say, "Well, you never liked me anyway. You're not sensitive to these things." But I mean, give people a break. In the West, in England, America, Australia, wherever, we've had time to get used to these ideas. Imagine your friend's family. Like Hong Kong people are quite traditional, right?
Yes.
Imagine your friend's family when their son suddenly disappears and now they have a daughter. So that must be really, really confusing.
Well, a good friend, I actually just experienced this 2 weeks ago. A good friend of mine, he's a lawyer in the United States, and he determined that he was a lady trapped in a man's body. And so thus changed his Facebook name. But he's still married and still has a son. So his wife now refers to Ta as her wife. And My question, though, is not so much on their relationship, our relationship, parents and friends relationship, but now how is his son going to identify to his biological father, who now identifies as a lady? Or would that even matter?
Mm-hmm. So, and the interesting thing is, these are all questions that everybody wants to answer. Like everybody wants answers to these questions. The very fact that we are sitting here having this conversation, asking these questions, is kind of indicates that there are probably a lot of millions of people out there that want the answers to these questions. But if we go out and we ask these questions, we get accused of being ignorant, or we get accused of being, like bigoted or sexist. So it's important to ask these questions. And to be honest, I don't know any transgender individuals, but I would have a million questions if they, especially a Chinese transgender individual. That would be great. I would love. Maybe can you find a transgender individual for the next episode?
I don't know any personally right now. But we're talking about this subject. I read an interesting story from America last year. There was a 5-year-old who was raised constantly. Was born, genetically as a man, as a boy. But his parents really wanted a girl, and so they began to dress this little boy up as a girl constantly through school. When he was 5 years old, the school, of course, objected, and to him going into the ladies' rooms, they got a special bathroom for him. Wanted to appeal to everybody, of course. When this little boy got into middle school, apparently had himself a boyfriend because he didn't know he was a boy, and apparently they both had a very surprised moment. And this went to the news, and everybody had an opinion about it at that point. So not only do we have the societal impact, but we now have the psychological impact of this as well. So
what you just said about, like boys being brought up as girls is actually sometimes it happens in reverse in China, because, like in China, you had the one-child policy for so long, and often these girls, they were brought up as boys. For example, I've written a couple of books, right? And my editor, this is her name, right? This is Ruo Nan, and Ruo means if, and Nan means boy, right? So basically, my female editor's name is if it was a boy, right? Like her parents must have been so gutted that a girl was born, so they bring up a girl as they would bring up a boy. And my editor is quite a tomboy as well, so you get a lot of tomboys growing up in China. And I think that's quite a fascinating phenomenon, that these girls will be
real life Mulan issue there.
There you go. Exactly, right? It's in the culture. It's in
totally.
Yeah.
So, a couple comments I want to get to here. T-Man says, "I am a robot. I have no sex." Okay, thanks for that.
So, what do they call that? Like no sexual, right?
Yeah, like asexual or something like that.
Asexual.
Ta is actually written for the female form. Ta. So you see, and you can see in the character there. That's how I remembered the characters in the beginning. Was the female has the closed legs, while the male has the open legs.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Lucy's saying that her dad came out when she was 19. You both thought he was straight. It's interesting coming to terms with. Wow, Lucy, that must be quite. I don't know. Was that quite traumatic? I can't imagine what that would feel like.
That's happened in society a lot, where someone has had tendencies one way, but due to societal and parental pressure, they get married and may have kids and may still identify somewhere else. And while neither one of us are actually psychologists, nor do we play one on TV, it's not some question we can easily answer. But like anything else, I think talking about this definitely can resolve some of these issues. So that's a pretty yeah, it is totally. So asexual. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we are just about the end of our hour here. But I definitely want to give Burbex, I want to give you 30 seconds, a minute to kind of wrap up this topic for us.
I think with this whole issue, it's just important to like stay open-minded. You know, like the whole idea of like gender. Lucy was talking about gender fluidity earlier. I think you just kind of got to stay open-minded to this. You know, because it's really easy to hurt people's feelings. Oh, my dog's arrived as well. It's really easy to hurt people's feelings. It's really easy to offend people. So whenever you feel like you're kind of backed into a corner by your own opinions, just take a breath and try to think how other people feel. Because the most important thing is just like be human, be kind to people. That's how I try to think about it. And Lucy is saying, thanks for chatting about this. I love these chats. Thanks, Lucy. We were a little bit nervous about doing this one because we thought people might get angry or something, but I'm glad we could talk about it. Thanks, Lucy.
Definitely. Well, like anything else, guys, I think that, you know, regardless of, you know, if you identify, you know, as, you know, a dude, a lady, a dude in a, you know, one package or not, or a robot or a Volkswagen Beetle, I think ultimately it's how you treat people, because people are people. You know, Dr. Seuss said it best. People are people, no matter how big or small. And I think how you treat people ultimately not only reflects your own character, but how people are going to respond to you as well. And on that note, guys, I appreciate you joining us. Like anything else, always carry a can of sardines. You never know when you may need them. I want to thank
this is sponsored by Pilsner Herbal Beer. We got sponsorship by Pilsner. If Pilsner actually wants to sponsor us, that would be nice.
That would be awesome. So, what projects do you have coming up on your channel in the near future, Bren?
Well, there's a project that you and I worked on together. Jimmy and I went exploring in a forest, and we found an abandoned MiG. Oh no, it wasn't a MiG, was it? It was a J6 jet fighter.
It was a J6 Chunyang, which is the Chinese. It was a knockoff jet. It was a Chinese version of a Soviet MiG-19. It took us forever to get up there on this island, and it was just
Jimmy was about to have a heart attack, I think.
I what now?
You were about to have a heart attack, I think.
No, well, I was hot, but I wasn't. I was nowhere near about a heart attack.
Do you have any pictures you can show me from that?
You know, none on this computer right now. No. I don't think so.
But, that will be coming up on both our channels very soon. So we collaborated on that one, and I've just got some other. Yeah, Lucy, we found a jet chilling in a forest. Yeah, an abandoned one. And Helen is saying refreshing. Oh, you've got it. You can see there's Jimmy. He's sitting on the plane, sprawling maybe.
Yeah. But this was just out in the middle of the woods, and it took us for a while. We had to hike through, you know, mud, streams, everything else.
That was a hot day.
We had to take a black taxi just to the edge of the forest and hike through there. But it was a true adventure, and you can expect that to be coming out on both of our channels in the near future.
Yeah, so, head over to my channel. It's Burbex, Burbex, and you can find some other adventures in China as well. Yeah.
True story. And on that, you know, guys, I appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next week on the Snark Lounge. In the meantime, you guys have a great night.
Take it easy. Thanks, Drea. Thanks, Lucy, Shenzhou, Helen Tan. See ya. Bye.
See you.